Hello, everyone. Welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May, Trent Smallwood. We bring you each and every Monday night live here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel the latest news, notes, information about Georgia football recruiting. Who knows? May have a visitor or two pop in along the show. We got a lot of guys that are traveling back and getting settled in from a long weekend of recruiting festivities, recruiting events. The Scavenger Hunt went on, guys. Had a commitment today from Colton Heinrich, a four-star tight end from the class of 2024. But first, guys, how are you guys doing after covering this crazy weekend of Georgia football recruiting?
Doing good. We were on the road last week and saw some guys down in Georgia. Went to a Braves game Friday and in between. And yeah, it's everyone's the attention's looking towards June, but things really got started as far as summer recruiting festivities with the Scavenger Hunt weekend. So big start to the summer for sure.
Absolutely, Trent.
Yeah, I mean it's always good when the Braves are beating the Dodgers, but yeah, it was a good weekend. The sounds like Georgia, one commit coming off of it, but made ground or widened the gap with several other prospects, and just a good overall weekend leading into June.
One public commit, that is. There's probably some, and we know we've said many times, hey, silent commits and kind of nods and saying, hey, I'm coming. They aren't worth anything until you go public with them, really. But there was definitely some of those that we know about, that we've been told directly about, that we've been told in roundabout ways about with different guys, and definitely some that we think are going to be coming for Georgia sooner rather than later. But Colton Heinrich was that guy that committed today, class of 2024 tight end. As I mentioned, guys, Todd Hartley continues to recruit at just an unbelievable level. Everybody went into this weekend talking about Jaden Riddell being the one coming in, that and there's some buzz about him going in and things like that, but it ends up being Colton Heinrich out of Fort Lauderdale, 6'4", 230 pounds at least. I think that might be a little light for him in terms of, saw him this weekend when I went over to Jefferson to cover the elite throwing session that took place over there that UGA Sports was at all by our lonesome for a good while over there, and just saw Colton in person, an impressive, physically imposing young man, but also very talented. Trent, I know you probably had a chance to watch the film. I call him Jason Witten 2.0 because he wears 82, and that was his favorite player. But man, he's impressive.
Yeah, he's very athletic. He high points the ball, and you can move him out. He's not as athletic as Brock Bowers because there's just not many guys that are on Brock Bowers' level. But he's very athletic for a guy his size, and I like how he's even used in his offense. The way they play him in the slot, he runs away from linebackers and safeties. They run a lot of seam routes, and then they can shift him outside when they get in the red zone, and he can win one-on-one battles. So, very good pickup. Another great pickup from Todd Hartley, which is not surprising.
Yeah, this was, I believe Patrick Garvin over for us put out the stat that should Heinrich go on to sign, which he says that he's shutting everything down. He canceled his official visit to Alabama, Ohio State, and North Carolina. He's no longer taking those. But Patrick Garvin put out that should he sign on the dotted line with Georgia come December, that this would be the sixth four-star tight end or higher that Todd Hartley has signed since the class of 2020. Jed, that's just nobody else is even scratching the surface of that right now.
Yeah, I mean, simple, journalism degree math tells me that's over one per year, which, there's a ton of programs out there that would kill for, just two or three guys at that level over that kind of span. And, the thing is, we all remember when Landon Thomas flipped to Florida State about a month or so ago. And I don't think anyone was really concerned about Todd Hartley's recruiting at the time, but it's still, it catches eyes when the number one tight end goes. But they zeroed in on Colton Heinrich, who had been who was being recruited by Georgia even before Landon Thomas flipped anyway, got him. There's Jaden Riddell, who also was in town. Georgia's in good shape with him. I mean, it just we talk a lot about this recruiting machine in Athens, whatever, but especially at that tight end position, like it doesn't stop. There's always another talented guy waiting in the wings. And Trent, you mentioned how athletic Colton is. I saw one of the YouTube comments over here. Asked if Heinrich is a flexible tight end, being flexed out. I think that's just how tight ends are now, right? I mean, every tight end that you're going to get is going to have that ability to split out wide, and not everyone is going to be in the athletic mold of a Brock Bowers or a Darnell Washington. But if you're going to play in an offense like Georgia's, you're going to have that ability to spread out wide and play off the end of the line of scrimmage as well.
Absolutely. We saw if you go and watch his film on Huddle that we embedded into the commitment story today, which all the commitment stories we put those out for free. All the other insights like our war rooms and things like that we've been dropping, as Darren Franklin said here. We appreciate you, Darren, for pointing out. Been working hard to try to provide a lot of insight lately. And I'm telling you that, you go watch that Huddle film, Trent, and they just line him up out there like they would a X or a Z receiver out wide in the red zone, and just throw a little fade, and he just reaches right over the guy and plucks it away from him and catches the ball out away from his body. All those things, those are just things that nowadays in the red zone you have to be prepared for as a defense, because these big tight ends can just match up in so many different ways.
Yeah, no doubt. And then one of the other things that I noticed, and I saw that he has a 4.2 GPA, but he understands where to sit down in zones. You see him a lot of passes. He's just physically imposing when he gets the ball over the middle. He'll put a pounding on a safety or a linebacker. So, yeah, I mean, you can use him in different ways. I'm sure you can line him up and block him. You don't see much of that on his film, but as big as he is and as physically imposing he is with the football in his hands, I'm sure that he can line up and block, which he'll be asked to do some. So he's just a multiple tight end that can be used in various ways, and including the red zone threat of going up and catching balls over defenders.
He got to spend a lot of time with Dylan Raiola on this trip, and it was a guy that I think those two had a pretty good bond. They didn't really know each other a whole lot kind of going into this visit, but Dylan spent a lot of time with him. They were in the photo shoot together, all that kind of stuff, and it never hurts him working on Colton. And I'll just take you kind of behind the curtain a little bit here, guys. This is one I talked to Colton a lot going into it, and he was pretty set of, hey, this is going to be Georgia Alabama battle. He calls me Sunday at 2:00 and says, hey, I need that commit edit. We're gonna go ahead and commit to Georgia. Got those quotes from him, and Jed, he just said that he could not think of a better place with Todd Hartley, with Coach Smart, with the combination of the academics and the on the field success that Georgia's had. He just couldn't think of a better place and decided to go ahead and shut it all down. That is a drastic movement that we typically don't see that much of. So Colton Heinrich fell in love with Georgia this weekend.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you got a guy with official visits like the ones you mentioned, typically he doesn't shut it all down after the first one, right? Like, you'll see guys will set an official visit and commit after, but that's generally when that's the first official visit they've taken. To have them on the schedule and then say, you know what, I've seen all I need to see, I'm good. That just tells you how much Georgia crushed it within this weekend. And I mean, with 4 official visitors, it was him, Cam Michael, Jeremiah Smith, and Casey Poe.
And Marcus Harrison was also there.
Yeah. He, it was a lot of quality time with Todd Hartley. I'm sure throughout the week. Obviously Saturday there was a lot of people in town, but when you go Friday to Sunday, there's a lot of quality time there. So, we say how good Georgia does with these visits, and clearly it went from a school that looked in good shape with Heinrich to nailing this thing down in the span of about 48 hours.
No doubt. Guys, I just cannot express enough how impressed. Like, I've never been we've went to camps before, right? We've went to many things where there was going to be a lot of people there covering something, but I showed up there at Jefferson High School, and here comes Dylan Raiola, here comes Sammy Brown, here comes Ryan Williams, number 1 receiver in 25 class, here comes Nikar, Sokovi White, just one after another coming in there. And this seeing them get led by Dylan. Dylan organized this whole thing. He's over there with every single concept and route they were getting ready to do. He would explain not only to the other quarterback that was there the progression of what, okay, on this one we're looking to the corner to the post, back to the deep over here, all this kind of stuff. They were just going different progressions on things. And he was explaining to the receivers, hey, I want you to take this at this angle, break it at this many yards, all this kind of stuff. And just really took command. And it wasn't in a I'm dominating type way. He also, asked them for a little input of what's your favorite way to run this route and things like that. Guys, that's just something I haven't experienced in more of a relaxed type setting like that. And for a long time there, we were just there kind of cover it, getting video. Of course, it turned into a bigger event a little bit later on. But guys, just watching the video and things like that, what kind of impressions did you get from kind of seeing the footage that we got? And then I'll kind of share at the end some of the takeaways I had.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Wayne, in your one of your board posts about it. So Kobe White and Nye Carr are not to be overshadowed in this thing. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith's there, and Jeremiah Smith is incredible. He's got all the physical tools. He's great as a receiver. But those two guys that Georgia already has on board are very, very talented. I saw Nye Carr at a spring game last week. He's a very quick twitch guy. Like he's going to be a slot guy in Athens, is what he told me. But he makes guys miss. He has good hands, obviously good speed. He's got I think he ran a 4.47 the 40-yard dash. So good speed, not necessarily a burner, but and then Kobe White as well. Good route runner, explosive athlete for the size he has. And he told me at his spring game last Friday, he had a 38-inch vertical. And when you look at the combine measurements, that's more than Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's more than Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. I mean, Kobe White, he's 5'9" and a half and 175 pounds, but he is pound for pound one of the better athletes that's coming in this class. So
he looks thicker than that. I'm telling you, he looks thicker than 175 pounds. Trent, I compared in the war room that we dropped at midnight Sunday night, Monday morning, however you want to view it. Dropped that, and I compared Kobe White to Kyrus Jackson because it's that compact explosiveness, precision in the routes, things like that. He almost exudes a leadership, a toughness about himself. And then Nye Carr, I compared actually to Ladd McConkey because he's so quick at the top of the route, and he just seems to run routes with almost reckless abandon. Like you see Ladd, and he's able to stop on a dime too. What do you think about those comparisons for those two guys?
Yeah, I think they're good. I knew, coming in how good Nye Carr was, but Kobe really impressed me. And just in that video alone, just, not only from physical traits that you are talking about, but his route running, his ability to, he's got that burst, the ability to go downfield and catch the ball. And of course, having Dylan Raiola throw you the ball, he's throwing it 60 yards or whatever in the air. I mean, he's launching that ball, but Kobe really impressed me going back and watching that video and his ability to get downfield, make catches, and just his overall build and burst at the wide receiver position.
Jed, you've talked to Ryan Williams, the number one receiver in 2025 class. I've talked to Ryan Williams a good bit as well. This is a guy who definitely, I mean, he's still committed to Alabama, but he is definitely in talks with Dylan Raiola regularly, and Georgia has his attention after this weekend. The main thing I saw in that throwing session was those two may have had the most fun out there throwing with one another. It seemed like he just constantly had a smile on his face, was happy to be there kind of around all that talent, and a ball did not drop between those two in every rep that they had. So instant rapport between those two, connection and throwing with each other. Still, he's an Alabama guy. He's at Saraland High School, Jed, but you got to feel that Georgia made a little bit of movement this weekend with Ryan Williams.
Yeah, he told me, and he told Adam Gorney as well, the Dylan Raiola commitment definitely plays a part for him, which is to be expected as a receiver. But it almost reminded me a little, Blaine. Remember that summer of 2022, and there was that big first official visit weekend. Who's lurking in those pictures but Troy Bowles, who obviously 23 linebacker or whatever. And it almost makes me think when we look down the road, look back on this throwing session, how big this might have been for a guy one class below, most of the guys that were there, and Ryan Williams. And he said, and listen, throughout the day Saturday, the Scavenger Hunt, who was on his team but Sakovi White, he's a great guy to be around. And it sounds like from talking to Ryan, the recruiting pitches are there, but it's not in a super overbearing way. It's almost like they're letting him figure things out for himself while keeping in his ear, whether it's Sakovi, whether it's Dylan Raiola, Nikar, I'm sure as well. So, it's when you look at it, and I actually did this when I was, looking at something the other day. Georgia has never signed the number one receiver, the guy that ends up as the number one guy in the rivals rankings. And now when you look at Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, I'm not saying Georgia leads for both of those guys, but there's a very realistic chance that it could happen back-to-back years if Georgia were to end up flipping Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. So Brian McClendon is definitely, this is kind of what we saw coming when Georgia hired Brian McClendon. It's really kicking into gear with this 2024 cycle right now.
Yeah, that's a good segue into Jeremiah Smith as well. 6'3", 198 pounds is what he's listed at. But I'm just telling you, seeing him in person, he is physically impressive. Sammy Brown was quoted in a story with Adam Gorney, he saw Jeremiah there, and he said, "My goodness, he's just long, he's a long human being. He's got long arms. He's a long strider. He's a guy who easily covers ground." And I'm just telling you that he's the type of guy I put in the war room that can be a wide receiver one close to day one when he gets on campus, as long as he can, make sure he knows the nuances of the playbook. Trent, he has the type of ability to be immediate impact, like a George Pickens, like a Julio Jones, like those type of guys. That's what kind of receiver you're talking about in a Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, Georgia hasn't been able to land that receiver besides Pickens probably since AJ Green. That I guess they thought Marlon Brown might be that guy, but that never materialized like I thought. But yeah, he's definitely that has all the traits to come in and be the number one guy or number one receiver from day one. It'd be interesting to see. Committed to Ohio State, and like we talk about, as long as he's committed, things haven't changed yet. But I know Georgia did push that needle a little bit this weekend, and Dylan Raiola is a big reason why.
There's comments everywhere from Smith talking about how much he now has to consider Georgia because of Dylan Raiola, how he doesn't want to put out. In fact, he was telling me at the thing, he doesn't want a bunch of added attention with this when I saw him this weekend, and that, none of this is really going to be decided until it comes down to, when the pen goes to paper. So you could legitimately see this Jeremiah Smith thing end up being very much so in the same mold as a Travis Hunter type deal. Like, we don't know, even though he's committed and everybody thought Travis Hunter was locked in with Florida State, who knows? This thing may, Florida's trying to get involved here, which that would be the shock of all shocks if, he went and joined that dumpster fire in Gainesville. But what is it, Jeff?
I was just going to say one more wrinkle. You talk about it going all the way to the end. Another wrinkle is the situation with Brian, not situation, but if Brian Hartline were to leave for a college head coaching job or an NFL coordinator job, whatever, that would be the timeline between, say, December 1st and December 20th or whenever signing day is. That 3 weeks is when a lot of those rumblings would be going on, reports coming out, depending on where Ohio State is, whether they're in the playoff or whatever. So that's when things could really get interesting, is if stuff starts happening with Brian Hartline up there at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, there's people forget that here we are, and this official visit for Jeremiah Smith occurred May 19th through 21st, but there's a long time till December. And I think the big date you need to look at is November 25th. Why? That's when Ohio State plays Michigan again. And I'm telling you, let Ohio State go to Michigan and lose to them for the third straight time. Let that happen, and we'll see how Buckeye Land is starting to feel about things. So it's going to be quite interesting. There's a long way to go. Georgia set the bar. I was told by sources there at the visit that on multiple occasions, Jeremiah Smith and his family said that Athens felt more like home, quote unquote, felt more like home. So we'll see how that transpires and goes throughout. Guys, we also need to talk about the linemen that were there. Casey Poe takes a visit. Well, before we handle the lineman, we got another receiver, one that we just talked about. It's going to join in here with us. Sakovi White. Sakovi, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Absolutely. We were just talking about the throw-in event, the little throw-in session that went from a kind of a small gathering there to a big event there pretty quick with all that talent loaded up there. What was it like just getting to throw with one of your future quarterbacks there in Dylan Raiola?
Lets me know that we're going to have a lot of throwing power when we get there, and it'll be easier for him to get us the ball.
Absolutely.
So you were really successful.
You were having a lot of fun, it seemed like, with Ryan Williams. I was telling Jed and Trent, Ryan seemed to be just smiling the entire weekend. It seemed like the young cat was having a lot of fun with you older guys there.
Yeah, he's a cool person. He always smiles, jokes, likes to have fun, very athletic. So far I can see he can do anything. So, I mean, hopefully we can get him away from Bama.
Yeah, you and Nikar were there, the whole time, kind of chopping it up together, talking about different routes and things like that when you were running that. How cool was it to be there with a wide receiver that is already committed to Georgia just like you are?
Lets me know that I'm not doing it by myself, and he's in the same grade as me, so we'll be tagging on doing it together. We'll be there for 3 to 4 years, and hopefully we can continue to help each other and be better, make each other better.
Absolutely. Jed, Trent, y'all got anything?
Yeah, Sakovi, I was at the spring game last Friday, and you were saying that what Coach McClendon is telling y'all is, hey, y'all need to come in and be ready to roll day one, ready to make an impact. Just what are the preparations going to look like for you, for Nye, for Nitro Tuggle, y'all, as you look to come in next January and be ready to make an impact day one?
I think we just got to be ready to play and step up and fill in some big shoes when those receivers that are there right now leave and go to the NFL, hopefully. And we just got to be ready to make big plays and help the team the best way we can.
So for those of us who weren't there, you got to do the scavenger hunt. It was Ryan Williams told me y'all were Team Hollywood. So take us through.
Yeah.
Take us through the day. What all did you do? Where'd you find Coach Kirby? What was the favorite thing? Give everybody a rundown of what that scavenger hunt is like for someone who was in it.
Well, we seen Coach Smart in the practice field in the indoor. They low-key cheated. Dylan's team low-key cheated because they took the picture before the game started and didn't post it until after the game started. So they cheated. So we really won, but it was just us driving around campus with the coaches and having fun, doing a lot of different events. And I guess it was just building a bond with our teammates, our future teammates, mostly. We got to jump in the gymnastics thing. Well, I didn't jump in it because I didn't feel like getting stuck, but Ryan did. And then we just did a lot of different things. We played with water. Kind of hard to remember because there was a lot of things.
I heard there was a karaoke setup. Did the receivers get in on that?
Yeah, there was a karaoke. They sung. I think the song was called "Baby Shark."
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, Ryan picked that song, and I was just standing there looking at him like, bro. I didn't.
You said Ryan picked it?
Back there. Yeah, Ryan did.
Well, he is the youngest one. Makes sense. He's closer to that age. Now, Trent, you got Zakovi?
Yeah. I said, what do you think about the newest commit today, Colton Heinrich?
I seen him run routes with us. I think I didn't really know who he was. I thought he's really, really big. I didn't know. I thought he was already at Georgia, and I thought because he came in with a whole bunch of Georgia gear on, and I thought he was already dead. I was like, okay, so some of the football players are running routes with us, but they was like, no, he's still in high school, and I was like, okay, yeah, he's really, really big. So that tight end spot is gonna be really, really nice when he gets there, and I think he's gonna fill his shoes in when Brock leaves, and he's just another Brock, and for us. And that's why we're not really going to miss anything when we come in. It's just going to be same players, just different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when you're talking about Jeremiah Smith, you guys, we saw, I didn't see you upload any pictures to Instagram, but I saw Nikar and Dylan and Jeremiah kind of pictured in some trios together. Did you get in on the photo shoot action with Jeremiah and Dylan? You're trying to persuade him, flip him to the Dogs?
No, actually, I didn't. They stayed overnight. They stayed the weekend there because they live so far. I live probably like an hour and 45. So I went up there that day and then went back home that same day. But as in Jeremiah, I mean, I talked to him, but he's really not. I mean, I talked to Dylan about him. He's really not. He doesn't talk much. He said he got to warm up to you. So I figured that. I know he's a quiet person. But I heard a little squeak out of him when he tried to catch the ball. So at least we heard that. At least we heard that. Unless he's not a too quiet person. So and I think we can get him. Dylan is trying really, really hard to get him. And if we get him, it'll be raps for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's talented player.
Yeah.
So what is when is your OV is the June 9th through 11th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
what
sir.
are you looking at? You got some guys, a guy that I don't know if you spent time with him on the Scavenger Hunt, but KJ Bolden is going to be around. Sammy Brown, a guy that I know you were around, of course, at the throw-in event. He was there, kind of helped schedule it and stuff like that. What's going to be kind of your goal your pitch to those two to try to land them as Georgia Bulldogs?
Just making sure they have a fun time, just making sure they have a good time. And that's really what it's about. Just making sure they have a fun time and showing them that this is where home is, and that we have their back, and that no matter what happens, we're just going to be happy with whatever decision they make. But we hope the right decision is Georgia.
What'd you think about Sammy's receiver skills? I mean, linebacker out there trying to go out and get it a little bit.
Yeah, he did that. I knew he could do that because when we played him in our playoff game, he went over the top and caught the ball over one of our players, and I was just like, yeah, he's different. Like, he's a different breed. So I knew he had a little something.
Trent, Jed, you got anything for Sokobe?
I was just gonna say over here, we got a question. What does Sokobe think about the facilities? I know you kind of seen how these facilities at Georgia have opened and developed over the past year or two. Just how do you describe what those facilities are like as someone who, it's going to be your home, in the next year or so?
Amazing. Their electronics there are really, really crazy. They're out of this world. As you transition from high school to college, they have a lot more money and they can do a lot more different things. And I won't be sore as much because we got rehab, trainers, and I can come in and do a lot of different things to help my body and my legs and stuff like that. And if I need to go sit in somewhere and just chill, I can do that. So the facilities are amazing.
Absolutely.
You started to see over the past couple of years the wide receiver room kind of transition at Georgia, getting more athletic, getting more speed. What is it about Brian McClendon, Mike Bobo? What are they telling y'all about the offense? And they're getting more explosive in the passing game. It looks like these past couple of years.
I think they want playmakers. That's really what it's about. People that they feel that can make plays on the field and make the team better anyway. And they're not just getting a player that can play one position. As I can see, Nakar can play the slot. He can be in the backfield for like a jet sweep or something. And I can do a lot of different things by being a returner. And if I need to, I can go to defense. I can do a lot of different things. So they're just getting players who can do different things, and I can just play one position.
Hey, great stuff, Sokovi. We know that you've been going a lot. You've had a lot of things going on. Even had a little birthday celebration you had earlier. So happy birthday to that member of your family, your little brother, and everything. And we appreciate you making time to come on with us, Georgia commit Sokovi White. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That was Sokovi White joining us here. And hey, it's always great having him on to talk about the class 2024. He's joined us before. Guys, what were your takeaways from some of the stuff Sokovi was saying there?
If Sokovi White's calling you a quiet guy, then Jeremiah Smith must be really quiet, because Sokovi's a pretty quiet guy in his own right. But no, I just think it's hearing him talk about the scavenger hunt is interesting, because talking to some guys this weekend, a couple of different guys said the event was really cool. It was the most creative thing they've done on a college campus. And I think, for a lot of these guys, especially the highly recruited types that Georgia goes after, the visits can get a little repetitive when you come in, you eat, you watch film with the coaches, you do this and this and this. I think the scavenger hunt is just a great way to mix things up and have fun and let it be different. And yeah, there ends up being some film at the end. Joseph Jonah Ajanye from Texas told me he went over film with Trey Scott, but it's a good way to mix things up, and it lets there's bonds built between commits and commits, between commits and targets, the coaches and all these guys. It's a very unique event. And you see, Dan Lanning had one in Oregon this weekend as well. It's a great event. It's
imagine that.
It's a good way to kind of break the monotony of business, especially for guys like Blaine. You mentioned KJ Bolden was there. How many times has KJ Bolden come to Georgia and sat down with the defensive coaches and seen the facilities and all this kind of stuff? So it's a good way to mix things up from the monotony of recruiting it. And then it makes an impact on these guys. Everyone we talk to says how cool it is, how fun it is, and just how different it makes Georgia in the recruiting landscape.
No doubt. We had a thing in here that says Falcons fan 1020 said Jeremiah didn't say a word. It doesn't give me much faith in the flip. Well, Sokovi didn't say a word all weekend he said it didn't say a word all weekend really to him that much. He's kind of quiet. To Dylan Raiola, he was pretty much talking with the entire weekend, and also a lot with Kirby Smart and Brian McClendon there. Trent, before we get to questions, any observations you had from what Sokovi had to say there?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting how the camaraderie built between players and prospects. That they might not live close to each other, they might live in different states, they might live across the country, but how much camaraderie these guys got. When they come in, they're already knowing each other, knowing what each other likes, their favorite things. I think that's why this team as a whole is working out so well. Is not only the group chat, just the bond these guys have when they come in. That they don't play against each other. But it seems like these guys talk all the time, and they in a group chat. But not only the group chat, is they're planning throwing sessions with players that are all over the country, and I think that's how you build the bond that the Kirby's been able to build that bond in Athens and sustain it, and I think that's where you've seen Georgia flourish over the past couple of years.
And Jed, we had heard about this throwing event 10, 12 days before, and it was totally player initiated with Dylan and Sammy kind of getting together and planning this thing out. Of course, Sammy with the access to Jefferson's practice field there and all that kind of stuff. So it does go a long way, as Trent said, with the relationships that are being built and stuff like that. So an interesting dynamic, but that had been in the works for a while, Jed.
Yeah, I mean, the first I mentioned going to Sokovi White's spring game, he told me about it then, and that was over a week out from it. And it's getting all those guys. Trent, you mentioned these guys live all over the country, starting obviously with Dylan Raiola in Arizona. So it takes a lot of moving parts to pull something like this off, but the impact it can have down the line is just huge. When you're talking about a guy like Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith, I mean, it's huge. And these guys, they build bonds. I mean, when I talked with Sokovi, he's like, Nitro Tuggle is the funniest one, and Malachi Tolliver is the one that talks too much. Like, these guys are already really close, it seems like, and they're not going to be on campus for another, I guess, 6-7 months.
No doubt. Now let's get into our vault questions here. Jed, we got one from Big Fatty 94 to start it off with.
You have how many solid commits by July 1st? More offense or defense?
Well, July 1st may be a tricky date because I think there's some of them are going to wait till a little bit later in that first week into July. But I get the premise here. Trent, we know that you're real high on that number. You said August 1st. So this would be pushing it a little bit sooner. We're at 14 in Georgia's class right now, with the addition of Drew Miller recently, the punter, and Colton Heinrich today. I would say I would be conservative and say that you're going to add maybe four to five more before July 1st. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, I feel good about my 20 number at August 1st if you're going 4 to 5 by July 1st. But,
well, I'm just saying, I think that like I'm going to extend it past into the first week of July, because I think there's two guys in the first week of July that could make decisions. We know that Sammy Brown and KJ Bolden have told us that they plan to commit around that time, to a school of their choice. And we know that Sammy's is kind of Georgia, Clemson. You got Ohio State, Oklahoma, Tennessee trying to fight to get in there, but really more Georgia, Clemson head to head. And then you got KJ, Georgia, and Ohio State fighting with like Alabama and Florida State and people like that trying to get involved in things. So, I mean, those are two ones right there. Jaden Riddell is one that you got to feel Georgia's in really good position with, and that's just three right there, Trent. So that's three that are really high profile and out there. So I would imagine a couple more wouldn't be a stretch.
Yeah, I think looking at 14 right now, 18 by first week of July. I do think we'll hit that. That's big right there.
Darren Franklin with a $30 super chat. That is greatly appreciated. That means a lot. That we appreciate that, Darren. That Darren's been highly complimentary, and we appreciate you guys tuning in with us. If you want to throw a super chat and put a question in, we will make sure we get to it. That is highly appreciated, Darren. You're a gentleman and a scholar, sir. But anyways, Trent, go ahead.
But yeah, I think 18 by the first week of July. I think 20 is the number that I've had by August 1st. So I think I'll stick with that number. There's a lot of guys that'll come off the board even more in July. So I still say it's 20 by July, August 1st, 18 or so by the first week of July.
No doubt. Jed, what's your opinion? Yeah, I think that's a good number. I mean, there's the guys y'all mentioned. There's a Cam Michael who we didn't talk about. But yeah, it's like you said, Blaine, there's a lot of like July 1st is tough. But when you look at, say, July 8th, that's when I think that's a week where you could see a lot of movement. Because, I mean, Sammy Brown has said numerous times, I am ready to get this recruiting stuff over with. Like he is ready to be done with it. So I don't think there's not going to be like a ton of movement, because I just think guys are going to want to take their officials at that point. But yeah, I would say 4, I think, is a good number. Like if you gave me 3.5, I'd take the over. But we'll see. There's obviously no super certainties or anything, but I think there's no real dates set on those guys in the first week of July. But there's guys that could come up at any time. So.
All right. Let's hit the next question. I'm actually texting with somebody who may join us here. So go ahead and read that next one, Jed.
Yeah, while Blaine's talking to the important people, if you had to guess on the next commitment to go public, who would you pick, and how do you see this running back class finishing?
Go ahead, Trent.
I would say Riddell, Michael. There's a couple of guys that could go next. As far as the running back class, I think you got to look at Christian Clark as one. This could go various ways. That they had Chauncey Bowens on campus. We have an article at UGASports or an update that kind of Georgia is really in the mix there. And if he was to choose to flip, Georgia's in a good spot. There's a couple guys that Georgia's, but I think running back is the interesting fit. Other than offensive line, I think running back is probably the biggest question mark of what 2 more guys that Georgia adds. And I think that's the plan, to add 2 more guys. But I think that's the big question mark, because they have several guys that are quality guys they can pick from.
Speaking of offensive line, Mr. Casey Poe joining live on Rumors versus Facts. Casey, just coming off that official visit, man, and we know that you had a lot going on. We appreciate you taking a little time to join us here.
Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. So the floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead and tell us what. Hey, us three, we never got to experience a D1 official visit in terms of college football or anything. So go ahead and fill us in on what the weekend in Athens, Georgia was like.
Yeah, it was a great time. It's one of those things where someone else gets to pay for you to come down and gets to pay for your meals, pay for your flight, and everything. So that in itself is a great thing.
As a big man, that's appreciated.
Absolutely. And but once you get down there, it was a great time. They get you your own hotel room. They really wine you and dine you nice. I can't remember if there was a night or even a meal where I didn't have steak. I was having steak for breakfast, which is something that is unheard of to me. But it was a great time. We get to do the Scavenger Hunt where we look for Coach Smart. And, I'm a competitor. I like to go out and compete. The O-line in it, but we got close. The quarterbacks won it. I think they cheated. I think Dylan did something to cheat. I don't know what he did, but he cheated in some way. But it was a great time overall. Got to go hang out with players, got to meet the coaches, got to go to Coach Smart's house. And it was just a whole big time, and we definitely made the most of it.
Yeah, you see our guy Andy Stowe here, Casey. He wants to know, how big is he? He looks like a wall right there. So Casey, you big dude. Tell him the measurements right here. What'd you measure in at Georgia this weekend?
Yeah, I think I was. They had me at like 6'4.5" and 290. I think those were around the measurements.
Jed, what you got for Casey?
Yeah. What is it like when there's a lot of Georgia commits there, whether it's Dylan, Sokovie, Nikar, all these guys? What's it like being recruited by them, and how is being recruited by, a guy your age maybe different than how Coach Cyril's, Coach Smart, those kind of guys recruit you?
Yeah, so being recruited by somebody my age is kind of weird because, I'll be playing for them one day, but also they're kind of doing the job of a coach. So it's kind of a two-part role for them. But it's great. I mean, it's the same thing going on at Auburn with Walker White. He's a huge guy that tries to pull commits for them. And then just everywhere. You'll get that everywhere you go. But it just makes it to where, yeah, you're getting recruited and you're getting talked to by these kids that are trying to get you to come. But you're also, building friendship. It's pure. It's just – we get to talk and get to know each other, so that if I do go there, we already have that friendship and that relationship built off. And also I can trust them a little more. If I already know coming into it who I'm going to be playing with, I'm going to trust them a lot more than if I'm just going in cold and hoping the class I'm going in with is pretty good.
No doubt.
Yeah, I have 2 questions for you. One of them is, landing a number 1 quarterback, number 1 player in the country, and Dylan Raiola, how big of an impact does that play for an offensive lineman like yourself?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, the trust between the offensive lineman and his quarterback is like no other. The the quarterback we have here at Lindale, Clint Thurman, that kid can sling the rock. He can run it, and I know no matter what. Any situation we go into, he's going to put his head down. He's going to get the job done because that's just the type of guy he is. And so that makes me have ultimate trust because usually an offensive lineman, we worry about kind of the run game and keeping the quarterback safe. Whenever you have somebody behind you that you can trust, it takes it into where, yeah, we're still controlling the run game. But whenever it's a pass, I'm not just protecting him. I'm keeping him safe because I know he's about to throw it downfield. If I give him time, he's going to make stuff happen. Or he's going to use those legs, and I got to be looking upfield to go try to block for him. So just kind of knowing that there's a really smart and a really good kid behind you, it gives the offensive lineman comfort, and I think it helps us to play better too. It's a great leadership that we have behind us, and it's a trust thing.
So what is the pitch by Stacy Searles? What is he telling you? What is he wanting you to come in and do? What would he like for you to what is he just telling you as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same pitch everyone hears from Georgia. It's back-to-back national championship. It's the best of the best, It's guys that are battling each and every day that they're the best in college football. They're going up against a first-round draft pick number 1 in the draft is going to go be playing against the first-round draft pick number 3 in the draft. They're battling it out every day in practice. But as far as what he wants me to come in and do is just compete. He wants to build the best offensive lineman to ever come through college football. And to do that, you got to have guys that are willing to compete, willing to go beat out some other people from some spots. And, it's pretty obvious. Everyone wants to play young. Everyone wants to play as a freshman. But sometimes that just doesn't happen. Like sometimes you can't just come in and play right off the bat because there's great guys ahead of you. But if you can go in and fight for that spot and learn from those guys in that second half to third year, you're a lot better position than where you came in with.
Casey, let me just go ahead and tell you, if you do end up going to Georgia, Kirby Smart is going to put you out in front of the media a lot. He picks the players that go out there. I'm just telling you, go ahead and get ready for that. You're going to be throwing that polo on after practice and going out and talking to guys like us because you're very well spoken, man, and doing a great job. Wanted to ask you real quick about your plans from here on through the rest of the summer. Like, I know you've got some other official visits lined up. Just kind of give everybody a pulse of what your recruitment looks like here over the next couple months.
Yeah, so I got a busy June going in. I got all my June booked up. I have Clemson coming up on June the 2nd, and then from there I'm going Texas Tech, Auburn to Alabama into that kind of break period. Throughout July, I really don't have anything big planned as of now. I'm not really taking any visits anywhere. I'm going to try to stay home with the family and kind of enjoy my last summer as a kid. But then going back into August, we're starting right back up. I have Oklahoma and LSU lined up for August. But it's going to be a whirlwind. Somewhere in these next couple of months, I'd like to, decide where home is and get kind of locked in there. So, one, I can come back and focus on Lindale because, we got a big season. We got a lot to prove down here. But also so I can do those things y'all are talking about and go out and recruit other offensive linemen for whatever school that I do choose to go play for. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's what my timeline is hopefully going to look like. But, stuff changes, so we'll just have to see how it goes.
Stacey Searles is trying to bring in 5, potentially 6 really quality offensive linemen in this class because Georgia's probably going to lose 3 guys to the NFL after this season from their starting offensive line this year. What was kind of the talks about that? About, hey, here's what we're looking for out of this class as a whole from Stacey Searles.
Yeah, he mentioned that. He mentioned the 3 guys leaving. I got to hang out with one of them. Tate was kind of my handler, my host, I guess you could say. So I got to hang out with him a lot. But the big thing coming out of it, and just what he was telling, there was 2 offensive linemen there. There was me and Marcus. What he was telling us, like, he's trying to build a great class. Like, he knows people are leaving. He's not scared because he knows what his depth chart looks like. But every year it's his goal to, make the best offensive lineman, get kids to come in and compete and get the best of the best so he can just keep restocking and keep having competition in that depth chart so no one can ever get comfortable. But as far as the expectations from him, he expects it to be the best offensive line class that Georgia's brought in and then keep building on top of it.
Last one from me, and then I'll see if Jed and Trent have anything from you. Georgia got the first official visit. You said there's several more coming up. Some people view it as an advantage to Georgia to get to set the bar. Some people view it as a negative because that feeling about Georgia may fade away towards the end of these visits. What do you say about that one way or the other?
Yeah, so as far as how I lined out my official visits, it was really just whoever, called me up first. I knew kind of my top 7, top 8 schools going into it that I would like to take officials to. But it was first come, first serve. If somebody asked for a date and it was open, I was giving it to them. But as far as where Georgia fell, I think it was a good thing. They set the VAR very, very high for themselves. They set a lot of great expectations. And going forward, I think it's good for them because I'll be able to base other schools off of them instead of, basing them off of other schools. It gives them a kind of a competitive advantage because I know what other schools have to beat.
No doubt. You guys got anything for Casey? He's been gracious with his time here with us.
Yeah, I just got one. You hear so much about, the culture and relationships, I guess specifically within an offensive line, right? That's one of the closest position groups on a team. How much were you able to see some of that within the Georgia offensive line group while you're in town, be it their relationships with Coach Searles or between themselves?
Yeah, that was something I was actually very pleasantly surprised by because I've always heard, Georgia kind of the Georgia and Alabamas and, kind of Michigans and Ohio States of the world, they're just like a machine. Like they get their work done, they get in, they get out. They don't really like build relationships with each other. And that's just not true, at least not at Georgia. I was able to hang out with some of the players and just see the bond they have. And then the bond they have with Coach Searles. I think Coach Searles went fishing with Bobo the other day, a couple like 30 minutes from the campus. So it's like, I mean, they're winning back-to-back national championships, and they're also building great relationships with each other that'll go on, throughout their lifetime. So that very pleasantly surprised me.
No doubt. Trent, you got anything to wrap it up with here?
I know you're a big dude. You're our watchers have already seen that. Do you kind of model your game after anybody in particular? I know offensive line, they might not do that. That might be more skill set. But is there anybody in particular you model your game after?
I really don't specifically. I don't have like one guy who I try to play like. I just kind of like if I turn on the TV and I have, like say the 49ers, for example, their left tackle this past year. His feet work were amazing on his pass sets, and it felt like he was like gliding all over the field whenever he was playing. And so I'll see that and I'll be like, okay, well, that's good. Let's start trying to work on my footwork. Or I'll see, the center for the Eagles and how he'll get out on those pulls. He's kind of a smaller, Kelsey, thank you. He's kind of a smaller guy, but he still gets out and hits the crap out of people and knocks their socks off. It's like, all right, how is he playing? So it's just taking bits and pieces from everybody's game and kind of trying to put them together into one great offensive lineman.
One guy from our audience says, if you want to keep eating steak, Casey, you better commit now. That's what he's telling you with Georgia. So that's his pitch on the internet here. But, Casey, you've been gracious with your time. We appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to covering the rest of your recruitment going forward. Good luck with everything this summer, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all.
All right. Thank you, Casey. We'll catch you later. That was Casey Poe, who was on here after his official visit to Georgia. Very thankful for him coming on. Guys, what were your takeaways from that interview?
Very, you see it in the comments over here, very, personable, talkative, mature guy. Blaine, you said he was going to be in front of the media a lot if he comes to Georgia. You're right. But yeah, and I think it's interesting hearing about the relationships with the offensive line that he was talking about. And it's interesting that the perception was that doesn't really happen at the bigger programs. Guys just come in and, get in and get out when it comes to work and stuff. That was interesting to hear him say that was the perception. And it was also interesting to hear him say that that Georgia kind of disproved it a little bit with relationships among the players and with Coach Searles as well. So that's definitely a point in Georgia's favor. And we'll just see how it goes. He's definitely got a long way to go when he's talking about official visits all through June and into August. But Georgia, like they have with a lot of guys in the past couple of classes, they got the first one, and we'll see if it works out for them.
Trent?
Yeah. We talk about Dylan Raiola and Nikar and these guys being recruiters. This is a guy that you want on your side just from he could be very you can tell he'd be very persuasive from in a recruiting standpoint. He's also a guy that you could get on campus and you could host other recruits just from his maturity and just the way he talks and his attitude and stuff. So very respectful and smart young man. And I think Georgia would be getting an all around good guy, good football player as well if Georgia's able to land him.
Absolutely. Guys, we got a lot of you in here. Do us a favor, hit that thumbs up. We really appreciate it. It helps us out. Just hit that thumbs up. We've had 2 interviews, so I don't know that we're going to get to all the questions on here. If we don't, Jed and I will go back through. Jed, remind me tomorrow. We'll go back through and we'll answer them in the thread on the vault. But let's try to kind of cherry pick some here. Real quick, Medical Dog asks, has Sammy Brown moved that tree yet? I don't know. He said his dad was going to have him move it today, so we'll see. Apparently there were a couple of down trees over there, and that was one reason he wasn't going Scavenger Hunt. But Sammy kind of slipped away, went to the Georgia baseball game with his girlfriend, but didn't go on the Scavenger Hunt. So, kids these days, who knows what happens there. But I'm sure he ended up moving that tree at some point, or as Mike Brown, his father, told me, I got to get his big butt moving that tree over there. So Sammy's a big dude for sure. Let's see, guys. We speaking of offensive line, I know we had one here on those guys. Let me find it real quick. Let's go defensive line first. Mad Dog 65-68. Do you think Georgia, get these offensive linemen, Justin Scott, Justin Green, Aiden Breland, and is there an update with Ajonye? If not, guys, real quick, what are your opinions on those three and kind of Georgia's standing with them right now?
Yeah, Justin Scott. I mean, I think this is the third or fourth week in a row we've had a question on him, and it's like Georgia's kind of in a holding pattern until he actually gets on campus for that official the first weekend in June. I know I've seen a lot of stuff about Miami and Justin Scott on Twitter recently, so we'll see what kind of impression Georgia tries to make on the official. I know out of the three listed, Trent, I think you'd agree Georgia's probably got the best shot with Justin Green as of right now. In-state kid. Aiden Breland is a guy that Georgia's in on as well. Blaine, I think you reported that he's taking an official visit to Georgia in June. And then with Joseph Jonah Ajonye, Georgia offered him, I believe, a couple months ago, and it was kind of an under-the-radar thing. And he shows up this weekend with Justin Williams, his high school teammate. And Georgia, he called Georgia his dream school when they offered. And I asked him, hey, how did your first visit to your dream school stack up? He said, it was better than I expected. And something interesting he talked about with me was he watched film with Trey Scott, and he's basically said Trey Scott basically blew his mind and taught him some things that he had never even considered. So the quote he gave me was something along the lines of, imagine how good I could be if I was coached by that guy for 3 to 4 years. So Georgia's obviously got that defensive line development pitch with what they've done over the past 3 or 4 years, and that's certainly made an impression on Jonah Ajonye. So Georgia and Oklahoma have kind of separated themselves a little bit. He's coming back for an official visit, I believe, June
23rd through the 25th.
25th. Yep. So
Justin Williams will probably come that weekend as well because they're teammates. And Justin told me, I'm going to have a story out on him tomorrow. Justin told me that, of course, he's an inside linebacker, but he told me that one of those last 2 weekends in June will be his official visit. So I would assume, since his teammate did the 23rd through 25th, that he would do the same. Trent, what's your opinion on these three defensive linemen?
Yeah, like Jed said, we're in a holding pattern for Justin Scott. I think when Justin Green, I think Georgia sits in a good position there and wants to stay close to home. He likes Georgia's defense. He's been able to build a good relationship with Georgia's staff. So I think Georgia sits in a good position there. And the one guy that when I talked to him, who he was talking with the most on the trail, it was Aiden Breland, surprisingly. So talking about building that, camaraderie off the field, that is another thing to watch because, that I figured he would say somebody down the road or somebody county over, but he said somebody across the country in Breland. So I think those three guys are, kind of a good starting point. We'll wait and see see how Scott's visit goes, but I do think Georgia sits, in a pretty good position with the other two.
Andy Stowe asked, are there any offensive line recruits at Georgia that hasn't been real on the radar other than Poe and Harrison that were mentioned? So, of course, Marcus Harrison is a big guy. I think 6'7", upwards of 330 pounds. I mean, they're 6'7" or 6'8". He's massive. A guy that comes in from the New York area. Georgia's kind of got in on that one recently. They really like him, or of course they wouldn't have brought him in for an official visit. Of course, we've seen what there is to like about Casey Poe, not only his size, but also his demeanor off the field. I think some names that you need to look at, guys, Marcus Easley, who's coming in for June 2nd through 4th. He just doesn't get talked about a lot, but he's from the Illinois area up there in Chicago, and 6'7", 300 pounds. I mean, a big guy over there. Ethan Callaway from Mooresville, North Carolina. So I think those are two names that you really need to look at a lot. Jed, is there anybody else that comes to mind on that offensive line?
Yeah, there's the guys like Fletcher Westfall is one who doesn't get talked about a ton. I believe is taking an official visit this summer. A guy like William Satterwhite from Ohio, who Georgia offered. Don't believe he's got an official visit set, but he put a top group out and Georgia was in it. So that could be one where Georgia's maybe positioned to make a move, maybe if he gets back on campus. But and Jordan Seaton, like I know he's a top guy, but I feel like he doesn't come up as much as of late. But he's a guy, of course, Georgia's right in there on. I think his process it might go a little farther into the fall maybe than some of these other guys, but he's a guy that Georgia is of course pursuing really intently.
Yeah, a lot of people asking on here. We had a couple different times asked. We'll just cover it all at once. Is it our opinion that Georgia, this could be the greatest class that Georgia's ever signed? Trent, it's going to be hard to beat that 2018, 20 and 2019 classes just from the total impact. But having said that, with having two highly ranked, highly coveted quarterbacks in the class, that certainly puts you in a unique position in terms of a class ranking standpoint and where it could finish, especially with the confidence that gives receivers and tight ends and even like Casey Post said, offensive linemen. So I think maybe even that running back position and how high some of those guys that Georgia end up finishing with, as you alluded to earlier, could end up deciding how highly ranked this class is, because we know the defense is going to be highly ranked on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier, I think I thought a lot of it depended on Dylan Raiola's ultimate decision. And with him being in the fold now, if you can land a Wingo or a Jeremiah Smith or even both, you could. I think that's going to be the key of having, that being able to get up there with that 2017 class, because that was a special class. But, landing one or two of those guys, have KJ Bolden being able to get his commitment if Georgia's able to. I think those are some guys to watch for to might put the icing on the cake with this class.
No doubt. Chauncey Bowens is a guy that we haven't talked about in terms of a lot. I mean, we've talked about him plenty here in the past, but here recently, but he is a running back that's committed to Florida. And I'm telling you, I think that he's going to end up being one of the top running backs in the class. It doesn't matter which recruiting service, quote unquote service you're looking at. I think he's really, really good. And Georgia's getting him on campus, Jed, according to John Garcia. And by the way, guys, John Garcia is a huge addition to Rivals on the national level and what we're doing. Great contacts in Florida, in the Southeast. He's going to bring a lot. So another reason to be subscribed to UGA Sports is because you get access to the content that John Garcia is going to post on the Vault for us. But he told us about Chauncey Bowens, and there's the Florida outlet, John Garcia, stuff we're hearing all indicates that Del McGee is right in the thick of this, and it's got a good shot once he gets on campus of kind of tightening things up to try to get that flip to happen there, Jed.
Yeah, and Bowens is a guy. Kirby visited his school in January, and then he visited Athens, or maybe vice versa. And at the time, there was a lot of chatter about him maybe flipping, and then it kind of died out for a while. And the talking point became, okay, well, if Georgia gets him back on campus, if they get him back on campus, and then boom, out of nowhere, he drops the official visit announcement yesterday. So, that's going to be. It's a big weekend. There's names. Malachi Tolliver will be in town. Kobe White, as he told us earlier, will be in town. Nitro Tuggle, Edric Houston, Chauncey Bowens, as we just talked about, Mike Matthews. So that's going to be a huge one. And when you look at running back, it's Bowens. There's Jarrett Gibson, although I think Georgia's looking up at a couple others in the Gibson recruitment. And then there's Christian Clark, Nate Frazier are the guys, and Taylor Tatum. Georgia's staying involved there as well. So I think the second and or third running back is going to come from that pool of 4 or 5 guys. It's just a matter of who, not necessarily Georgia turns up the heat on, but who are they able to really close with through all these official visits through the summer and into the fall.
And Trent, the reason I tied that in is because you were talking about where they finish and all that kind of stuff. I think Chauncey Bowens is my point is I think Chauncey Bowens, he's ranked 218th right now nationally. I think before it's all said and done, he's upwards inside the 150 before this is over with in the final rankings. And of course we know Jed controls that. So Jed is going to rank him higher.
Yeah. It's all up to Jed. No, I think
that's incentive to flip. If you flip, I'm going to rank you higher. So that should be on the front page of the UGA Sports site. If you want to get ranked higher, commit to Georgia. But yeah, as you were saying,
want the Jed bump, you got to give it.
That's where I'm going to need to file to trademark that pretty soon. So
Trent, go ahead. Sorry,
I don't think anybody else is going to take that trademark from you, Jed. But yeah, I think you could see him, make a big jump, maybe even to the top 100, maybe a top 5 running back in the class at the end of the day. But yeah, that would be a big boost for this class ranking. I think you could see several other commits get boost. One being Ron Puglisi getting a boost as well. So yeah, I think Georgia's class is going to be really, really good. Will it land 7 5-stars like it did back in, I think, of 17? I don't know if it'll get to the 7 5-star mark, but I think the class overall, from a hit and need standpoint and just from the overall talent standpoint, bringing in, will be right up there with 2017.
Speaking of great, this has been a great show. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. We've got a ton of people in here. Hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. It's totally free. Subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. Make sure you're on the vault. More stuff is coming day after day, and it's not going to stop until we get to December. And then after that, we'll be full speed into the class of 2025. So, and then there's already Georgia working on some big stuff for 2025. So recruiting never stops, and we are going to have you covered here on UGAsports.com. For Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. Like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll catch you guys next Monday night for recruiting. Coach Donnan will be live tomorrow with Dane, I believe, and then we'll have myself, TK, and Noshawn on Thursday night this week. Got something going on Wednesday, so we'll be Thursday night. Lots of great content. Check us out on UGAsports.com. Catch you guys later.